What we're starting to see are the children of immigrants, first-generation college students, who are a lot of them coming from Eastern Washington, now at University of Washington here in Seattle, and they're very interested in ethnicity, in identity, in immigration, in what it means to be an American. And through anthropology, I think one of the things that the discipline brings to those topics is a well-rounded view of those things. You know, it's really about experiencing, it's about observing, it's about participating. And I think it's a good way for students to be exposed to these topics without actually telling them how to think about them.
Literally this morning, my students were talking about unemployment rates and how unemployment could affect them and how it affects other people that they come into contact with. And so my discipline really facilitates us talking about these issues and analyzing them from different angles in our class setting, and I think it really opens their eyes to their individual situation, but also thinking more broadly about the U.S. and the world.
I teach courses on international migration and refugees. I would say in the recent past, students have been very involved in what's been going on in the Sudan, in Darfur, for example, or in the free trade coffee campaigns on campus. And those tend to be the kind of, how can I say, local connections to global issues that students are making and like to talk about.
So I teach various courses on immigration, on poverty, on urbanism, and with the service learning that we've been doing, it really allows the students to go out into the real world and see what this stuff actually looks like. And so for me, I really found it was a good way for students to combine their outside interests with things that we've been talking about in class. But also it's a very good way for them to contextualize a lot of the readings that they do.
I really wanted them to have some kind of hands-on experience and understanding from immigrants and refugees' point of view. And experiential learning in different community organizations was the only way that they could meet with refugees and work in assisting in refugee resettlement. And after the class is over, they often continue for a year or two and work in the same organization they started with.
And I find that they really have an eye-opening experience and are able to sort of see the problem in depth and the extent of the problem. And so I think it's a neat experience for them to really mesh the theories and the statistics that we learn in class with real life. And they can push back and question and say, you know what, this isn't the way it's really working out in the real world, which I love. And then we can talk about that, and they can become the experts in the classroom. The first it was a common book, Mountains Beyond Mountains by Tracy Kidder. I think 3 or 4 years ago. It was assigned to all the freshmen, incoming freshmen, which I thought was a great idea. And this book really focuses on health issues around the world. Another book that I think is important, or just sort of body of work, is by Julius Wilson, who is a sociologist, and the one book is When Work Disappears. And again, he talks about social problems such as unemployment, and if you lose that consistent employment for parents, sort of what happens to children and what happens to communities. So I think that's an important book for people to understand the extent of a problem and then also think through the different causes of that problem. And then the final one, my line of research is in juvenile and criminal justice. So one book by Bruce Western, Punishment and Inequality in America, really outlines the extent of the expansion of punishment, particularly in the last 35 years in the United States, and how mass conviction and mass incarceration really impacts individuals' lives, and it impacts different communities.
I would highly recommend a book by Joseph Nevins called Operation Gatekeeper. It provides a good background on the evolution of our immigration policy. But I would also, to balance that out, would recommend The Devil's Highway, which was the common book here at the university last year by Urea, and also a book called Enrique's Journey. And both of those books, I think, provide some real-life stories about what it means to be a migrant and what's going on in southern Arizona and southern California. Understanding U.S. policy and how it's evolved, along with putting a human face to the people that it affects, I think is a good start for people to get a better understanding on immigration.
The first book, I think, that I would recommend that everybody read is What is the What by Dave Eggers. It's a story of a Sudanese refugee. It's rather unremittingly grim, except that you know from the beginning of the book that he survives. Then I would recommend that people read something about the U.S. war in Iraq. And the best book I can think of right now is George Packer's book, The Assassin's Gate, about America in Iraq. The third book I would recommend is Jeffrey Sachs's most recent book, Commonwealth, Economics for a Crowded Planet. Now that's something that I think everybody is talking about, his work, and I think he's also influential in the UN, and I believe people in the Obama administration as well.